So I thought rather than being really boring and sitting inside in front of my computer and telling you all about how I love video games, I thought I'd come outside to Old Street, which is all around me, and give you guys a breakdown of exactly how I start to fall in love with video games, and what kind of food I eat with video games and how I relate that. It's gonna make sense in a minute. Just give me time. Hey. So this is the first episode of Around the World in 80 Games, and this was an idea that came up a few weeks ago, and I thought I'd be progressive enough to put it into action. To give you a bit about me, my name's Ivor. I'm 31 years of age at the moment, and I was born in Hammersmith, London, but also had the pleasure of growing up in Canada for about 15, 16 years, and then came back to the UK just at the end of 2001 and have grown up here ever since. So, first video game interaction, so serious. I was about 8.5 years old, 9 years old, and I had a friend of mine called Tony who lived about 2 cities away in a place called Ajax. Tony had a really cool birthday party on for him, and at that time he had original Nintendo, and it had the orange Zapper gun, and he had Duck Hunt, and I can tell you right now that it went from me playing that game once to literally like not letting anybody else touch that game, even to the point where my mom and dad came to pick me up, and it took another 20 minutes from the moment when they walked in the house and said, "Time to go," for me to actually leave the house. And it was kind of like at that moment going back in the car when I realized that something had just changed, like something like in my mind it just kind of clicked into and from that point onwards video games were an absolute must for me. So flash forward a couple of years after the whole Toady incident and playing Duck Hunt, I finally managed to get my parents to actually understand that I need a PlayStation more than I need probably, I don't know, clothing or food, and they do. And the first game that I get is in 1998. I've got the same kind of situation where Seinfeld's come out as a TV show. It's really successful. It's on its last series, last episode, and people are paying $2 million to be a 30-second clip as in a commercial during this time. For me, that didn't matter because I had this game. Through, and I try to do everything to do it in stealth mode, do it with silenced weapons, creeping around for hours, spending so much time on levels, but literally Metal Gear Solid started for me, which was probably a horrible, beautiful relationship with video games that lasts to this second. So I was lucky enough to have friends who had consoles as well as have consoles myself, so my interactions with games were quite good. And different formats. So after owning a Super Nintendo for a period of time, I went on to the PlayStation 1 like I think most people did. And then on to PlayStation 2, 3, and 4. I was completely sold on that format, and there was nothing else for me really and truly. That was just the epitome of gaming. Without a doubt, it had to be Paul Phoenix. Paul Phoenix, huge amount of power, was quite quick as a character, and had some really unbreakable combos. To which I used to quite a devastating effect on my friends. Yeah, that character. Growing up in Canada, if you've known anybody Canadian or had the pleasure of going to Canada, there was one food and one food only that really defined you as a Canadian, and that was poutine. Poutine, for those who don't know, is basically chips with gravy and something called cheese curds. Now, you can do mozzarella if you want to, you could do other types of cheeses on there, but cheese curds were the actual, genuine, authentic way to do them. I'm not gonna lie to you, as a person in their 30s now, I think if I ate that, I'd probably cry and sit in the gym for 2 days, trying to work it off. But when I was younger, it was just literally the perfect end to any day. So that's my story. That's the video games, that's the food, but that's not the end of it. Now I want to know exactly what happened with you. What's your story, and how did you fall in love with video games? Peace.